welcome to The Nation ASEAN Plus. I'm Elaine Noor Abdullah, and today we will be covering Malaysia's ASEAN Chairmanship launch. Now, over the next hour, we will be bringing you live updates from Wisma Putra, and in just a short while, we'll also take you live to Wisma Putra, where the Foreign Minister officially launches the ASEAN Chairmanship logo and theme. Now, these are the necessary formalities before it takes on another year of responsibility as the chair of ASEAN. Now, to discuss the significance of this chairmanship for both ASEAN and Malaysia, I'm joined by a panel who are no strangers to matters pertaining to ASEAN and its dynamics. Dr. Oh Ihsan, a senior fellow at the Singapore Institute of International Affairs, and Dr. Jasmine Begum, Regional Director, Legal and Government Affairs, Microsoft ASEAN. Hello, welcome, lady, gentlemen. Very much appreciate having you in the studio with us. I know you guys are busy and making the time here for us, but we have a momentous occasion at this point of time. ASEAN 2025 will be chaired by Malaysia, and we want to look at what that spells out for the bloc in the coming years. So in my first question here, I am going to address this to you, Dr. Jasmine. Let's start with the big picture, yeah? As ASEAN approaches its 58th anniversary, its role in global diplomacy and trade has evolved significantly. Could you start by explaining how ASEAN positions itself on the global stage today and what sets it apart as a regional bloc?
Thank you so much for having me today. What a momentous occasion, and to be here today and to reflect on how important the role of a multilateral in the context of global trade and global economy. As we go through this revolution that is taking, shaping the world as we stand today, we have seen how ASEAN has grown up and how ASEAN has evolved. But the role of Malaysia and the role of ASEAN, not only within the bloc, but also in the context of global economy, is going to be phenomenal. What we see as opportunity beyond just movement of goods, beyond trade, is the movement of people, the movement of small businesses that we see as an opportunity. And I do believe that at this point in time, it's not just about transnationals and multinationals. It is indeed every person in every organization in these countries that's going to play a pivotal role. I think the fact is 58 years, it is a long journey for us.
It has been.
And many people will say, what does it mean to the man on the street? But
Yes,
today,
exactly,
we really have a new meaning, how we have seen startups from across the region, whether it is Grab, whether it's Gojek, we have seen it go transnational, it has gone ASEAN, it's gone global. So indeed, Malaysia is in an amazing position to spearhead some of these leading edge areas, but more importantly, I'm really excited to see what it means to the people of ASEAN.
Now we're at the cusp of changing times. So much is happening at this point of time, and for us to take this chairmanship at this point of time, it's a crucial sort of crossroads. Dr. Oh, do you have some thoughts on that?
Well, of course, Malaysia, it's a very good example of how the ASEAN could work together as a regional, primarily a socio-economic bloc for the advantages of the many ASEAN countries. For example, Malaysia, it's a major trading power. We trade with some of the major economies of the world, but we also work very closely with our fellow ASEAN member states. And ASEAN started essentially as a geopolitical body. We were trying to maintain the peace among ASEAN countries. And indeed, we did a very good job on that. There's no war among all of us, unlike some other regions of the world. And on that basis, we thought perhaps we could do something more. And that's why we advanced towards economic collaborations. We have the ASEAN Economic Community and so on. And that makes ASEAN perhaps the most dynamic and certainly economically the fastest growing region in the world. But going forward, as Dr. Begum said just now, perhaps we should be more people-centric as to how all these ASEAN and other cooperations could indeed benefit people on the streets. I think that's one direction which the Malaysian leadership, Malaysian chairmanship could work towards. Yeah.
I think the big question next is challenges, right? So ASEAN has faced significant challenges, obviously, throughout, and recently from climate change to geopolitical tensions, like you mentioned earlier on. What do you see as the key global challenges ASEAN needs to tackle? Perhaps, if you don't mind, Dr. Jasmine, I'll ask you that question.
I see opportunity in many of these challenges. I think ASEAN has this important role of the moderating voice in the geopolitical and geostrategic situation. ASEAN has emerged as a moderating voice, as someone who has consistently taken a middle path and have been very calm and has been very collected, both in geostrategy and geoeconomy. We have done what is right for the multilateral, we have done what is right for the member states. So I do believe while there are emerging challenges from food security to cyber security, which is something that we see as a common denominator, I do believe Malaysia taking on the chairmanship at this point, there are issues that we would be able to handle collectively, and as Dr. O said, we are in a very good position. We have spearheaded many areas, especially when it comes to brokering areas like peace, and where we have become that seem to be very moderate, not only moderating by voice, but more importantly, we have also been able to lean in to support some of the efforts and lead some of the work. So I do think, I recognize there are challenges. We saw how ASEAN came together to address the challenge when it came to healthcare with the pandemic. And today we are talking about cybersecurity. We saw Singapore actually launch recently the ASEAN Cybersecurity Center and some of the efforts around it. So I do think there are many challenges, and I'm not going to downplay it or dismiss it, but I also think the cohesive center of how ASEAN has always been consultative, inclusive approach will allow us to face some of these challenges.
No, fantastic. And Dr. O, if you may just pose some of those challenges that you think would be at the forefront.
Well, first of all, we have some internal challenges. One of our member states, Myanmar, it's facing once again its national crisis, and despite our best efforts and the efforts of many superpowers around the world, it doesn't seem like the sufferings in Myanmar it's lessening. So perhaps under Malaysia's leadership, chairmanship, we could do a bit more about that. Externally, of course, we are sort of squeezed between this confrontation between the United States and also China, right? How we could position ourselves carefully in order to derive, shall we say, more opportunities out of this crisis, such as some, multinationals relocating to Malaysia and so on. I think we have to work extra hard for that.
Yeah, I think we have to really pay attention to those things. Now, obviously, you want to remind the viewers to stay with us as we prepare to go live to Wisma Putra while we continue and shift our focus to regional cooperation. Now, when we speak about regional cooperation, there's, of course, you highlighted some of these in the beginning, right? We started from creating this block, and then we've seen the AFTA trade, we've seen AC, we've seen a lot of collaboration that's created this flow, like you said, people, movement of not just logistics, people, but skills as well as knowledge. So in my next question, perhaps I'll start with Dr. O this time around with regional cooperation. Economic integration across ASEAN has been obviously the key priority for many years. What can Malaysia do to help accelerate this process?
Well, you see, our so-called intra-ASEAN trade among ASEAN nations is only 1/4 of ASEAN countries' trades with the major economic powers of the world. So if we could sort of raise that to half, namely our intra-ASEAN trade could double, I think that would be a superb achievement for Malaysia. Number one, I think Malaysia, of course, welcomes more investments from fellow ASEAN countries. We could also similarly invest more in other ASEAN countries. But also the other things, like, for example, other ASEAN countries' companies could do business easier in Malaysia, and vice versa. AirAsia should fly to more ASEAN destinations. All the Gojeks are also welcome to set up shops in Malaysia. I think we should really not only pay lip service, but do some concrete actions about this ASEAN economic community so that, again, people on the streets howling for taxi cabs could really enjoy the benefits. Yeah.
Dr. Jasmine, your thoughts on this?
Well, there's one thing I'm excited about. Inter-ASEAN, intra-ASEAN trade is phenomenal, it's exciting. But with digital economy contributing 1 trillion to the ASEAN GDP by 2030, what more can we ask for? Which brings us to DEFA that is being negotiated, the first of its kind agreement, digital economic framework agreement that will culminate in Malaysia.
Nice.
It was a 2-year exercise, and to me, what a momentous occasion for us to have it culminate in Malaysia and the opportunities that DEFA will present to us. I think this is an opportunity not only talking about I think he gave us a good example with Gojek and Grab and the opportunities it presents. We have seen e-wallets that are now available cross-market, cross-region, across the region. I do think we want to focus on how the digital economy can move from the city centers to the economic hubs across the region, right? Whether it is a faraway island in Indonesia, or for us in Perlis, or in somewhere in Laos or Vietnam, the fact that digital economy is bridging that digital opportunity is something that I see as a great way to bridge not only the gap but also create new economic hubs that will enable and make digital economy accessible to everyone. So that is something that I see that Malaysia could not only spearhead but also bring everyone else along. And finally, I think Malaysia has an important voice not only within ASEAN but also the global south. I think Malaysia's role as chairman of ASEAN not only advancing the ASEAN economic community but also a very powerful and important voice in the global south in advancing economic equality.
Now, these are exciting times. I know I love that idea of you talking about decentralization, making sure that every redistribution, obviously, of that workforce as well. People are already working remotely. It's all a matter of time before we just cohesively work together so that there's more alignment with regards to that. Now, we'll be going for a short break. Now, as the clock ticks down to the unveiling, anticipation is obviously building. In just a few moments, we'll witness the official launch of the ASEAN Chairmanship logo and theme live from Wisma Putra. This launch marks the beginning of a new chapter in regional cooperation, unity and progress. So stay with us for live coverage of this historic event and don't miss a moment of it. So we'll take a short breather right now. We'll be back right after these messages. Stay tuned. Now, welcome back. Soon we'll take you live to Wisma Putra for the launch of Malaysia's ASEAN Chairmanship logo and theme. But before we go in the studio, I have Dr. Jasmine Begum as well as Dr. Oasen joining me in conversation with regards to Malaysia being the chair for ASEAN 2025. And we established sort of like where we stand, ASEAN on a global stage, the regional cooperation that we're looking forward to happening as well as Malaysia takes the stage, what kind of policies or cooperation that we'll be able to see along the way. But let's now focus on the core, the people. We have about 670 million people. If you combine the whole ASEAN, that's a lot of people. I think it makes up almost like a fourth largest in terms of the economy in the world. So let's focus on that sort of majority of people. And I'll address the first question to Dr. Jasmine. How can Malaysia promote social harmony across the diverse nations in ASEAN? Because we speak multiple languages, we want to find that sort of common ground.
I think the interesting part of this 670 million people is the young population, which we have such large population of young people who are mobile too, and they have now become important voice of harmony, both at the governmental level as well as the man on the street. People being able to learn, being skilled up across these countries, I think presents a huge opportunity. And every country, every member state is now looking at the opportunity to skill up their young people, to skill up their workforce. People in the region are in fact a renewable resource, and we see them not only serving their economies. Increasingly, we see governments having opportunity, creating employment opportunities for the workforce that not only serves their own nation but also serves across the region and globally. I think as a region, harmonization is, harmony and social harmony is going to be central for us to emerge as a strong bloc, but more importantly, an intellectual and highly knowledgeable social harmony where people are also earning. As a region, we have a high GNI, I think gross national income. That is going to make a huge difference in elevating the status and the people of ASEAN.
Yeah, that's definitely true. Dr. Oh, any thoughts on that?
Well, indeed, I think digital connectivity and youth are the two key elements to further enhance ASEAN's harmony. Well, we should congratulate ourselves again for having this sort of very peaceful and prosperous relationship among ASEAN countries, which is not an easy feat. But going forward with digital connectivity, connecting almost every nooks and corners of ASEAN countries, and with young people rising to the fore, I think both in terms of business opportunities, and when we say business opportunities, we don't only mean like multinational big time investments, but all these small time artisans, craftspersons and so on. They make some local products. They could sell it online to customers from another country, or sometimes if they are more creative, they would create some dance and some performance. They could use some digital platforms and share with their fellow citizens from other regional countries. All this would enhance the harmony, the peacefulness, and for me at least, more importantly, the prosperity among the people of all these ASEAN countries. So it's very much technology driven and youth driven nowadays. It's not so much government driven anymore. Government cannot force people to be nice to each other, but if they can do business with one another, if they can share some sort of trendy dances with one another, then they'll get very close.
Now, of course, you hit the nail on the head, both of you, because we were talking about youth, and actually which would have led to my next question. But before I go to that, I'm reminding everyone to stay tuned. We will be taking you live to Wisma Putra shortly, where the Foreign Minister would officiate the unveiling of the ASEAN Chairmanship and logo and theme. So stay tuned for that. So we're still waiting to see whether or not we'll be crossing over. They are not ready yet. But let's now tackle about that youth thing. Dr. Jasmine, since you touched about youth, what are these kind of initiatives that we could create to create larger initiatives and involvement from the youth?
So, just in May, when Microsoft announced our investments across the region, one of the biggest announcements we made was the skilling of the youth across the ASEAN region.
Yep.
And that is an opportunity where we have seen increasing number of take-up of youth being skilled up. Youth being skilled up not only serves the nation, it serves the region and it serves the globe. So what we see, and I think Dr. O talked about digital infrastructure as that bridging that opportunity, but more importantly, how they are now able to become producers of technology. In the past, we have seen that technology or digital services would have been produced in Silicon Valley.
Yes.
But today we are at this point where we are producing services, we are producing products built on emerging technology, whether it is artificial intelligence that we see will also contribute to the economy, to the entire region, but also we see how young people are seizing this opportunity, and they are not just seeing within their markets. They are collaborating, cross-collaborating. They are seizing opportunities in different markets. They are working with the smallest of businesses to the largest of suppliers, right? They are in every part of the supply chain. And I think that was enabled, and Dr. O is right, it was not government that was pushing them. It is market forces and young people today seizing that opportunity and creating new frontier areas. And I think that is what we want to encourage our young people. We want them to be producers and creators of all of these new services and products that could actually shape the way the world sees us.
And we have a huge talent pool, as I mentioned earlier, the 670 million people. But let's not ignore those who are not considered youth and young. Dr. Oh, your thoughts on this in terms of the initiatives?
Well, I mean, shall we say the more senior among us, well, we also have our experience and our hopefully wisdom to share with the younger generations, right? I mean, people, it's hard for me to say this, people even of my generation, we lived through the 1980s and 90s and so on, where the world was also very turbulent. Where there were wars around the world and so on. So perhaps we could also help some of our younger friends when they are overly ambitious in doing something. We could also similarly play a moderating role to try to assure them that if they could slow down a bit, sometimes the world would be for the better, because sometimes when changes are too drastic also, people cannot accommodate, and when people cannot accommodate, then they become antagonistic, and before you know it, there will be conflicts happening. So we still have our roles to play. We also have to adapt to the new technologies, right? We can't dance in front of various handphones, but still we could perhaps share some of our wisdom, hopefully.
No, which I think there's all sorts of forms of content that is sought. It's not just for entertainment, but it's also for wisdom, which I think a lot of people do look forward to it. And now I have some feed from Wisma Putra as they're getting ready. So we see here that they are getting their places seated. They have not started the launch yet, but we have some feed from Wisma Putra right now. The moment that we're waiting for will be coming in shortly to us. We will take you live to Wisma Putra when the Foreign Minister is ready to launch the logo as well as the theme. So as you can see there, they're getting ready, and we're excited to see the final unveiling of the launch and the theme. While we are waiting for that, perhaps I want to throw this back to Dr. Jasmine. I think we talked about people. I want to talk a little bit about humanitarian policies. So what are ASEAN's humanitarian priorities, and how can Malaysia lead them? So what should we be focusing on?
I think as we think about as a region, the climate impact on the region is something that we have always struggled with, whether it's the floods, whether it is some of the challenges that some of our neighboring countries have had with volcanoes, or where we have also seen in some instances I do recognize where we were once hit by tsunami badly, and that was a pivotal point where as a multilateral we have also come together, we have learned and we have built on each other's strength. On the humanitarian front, I think we will continue to focus on the climate front, because that is going to be a critical point in time where it was not such a high priority previously, but today, because of food security and the reliability on climate challenges, I think on both that front, I do see an opportunity for Malaysia to continue on the theme of resilience. And why is this important? I think today, 58 years ago when we started, we didn't have the challenges that we are having today. We have both opportunities and challenges. And from a humanitarian perspective, I think I don't want to dismiss what is happening in Myanmar, and that is a challenge. And I do hope that will come to an end for the sake of its people. But more importantly, I do see also other areas where Malaysia could spearhead, be a voice not only for ASEAN but also for the global South in driving some of those humanitarian opportunities, including how do we address food security, how do we address as a region, we have been vulnerable in some instances as a region to cybersecurity attacks. While it may not be seen as humanitarian, but we have seen in the past how these cyber attacks have impacted nations. So we are facing a very different set of challenges than we would used to. But I think collectively the member states would be able to come up with also new ways of handling these things. We do have technology, we do have other tools in our toolkit to be able to address. And more importantly, I think we have emerged as a stronger voice. And that, I think, will be an important one for us to exercise.
Thank you, Dr. Jasmine. Dr. O, I want to get your take on this with regards to the humanitarian priorities. And of course, there have been various spotlights of various ASEAN members with regards to this and, our policy of non-interference. Perhaps you can have
well, when we talk about humanitarian efforts, the first thing which came to mind, of course, is the situation in Myanmar, right? And without interfering in Myanmar, what we can do is perhaps to make good preparations for the boat people, for the possible waves of refugees that will be coming out of Myanmar. And not only Myanmar, I mean, we are in a part of the world where a lot of things could happen, right? Even though today we are relatively peaceful. So it must have very robust structure in terms of addressing the needs of potential refugees or potential internally displaced people. So that's one thing. Another thing, it's of course to improve our various countries' food resilience, energy resilience, and so on, so that when push comes to shove, you have enough to eat, you can still power your electricity and so on. And that would in turn requires new technologies, right? I mean, nowadays when we talk about agriculture, it's not just like, you till the soil and so on. We are talking about high-tech farming with high yields and so on. Similarly, when you talk about energy, we are talking about harnessing the nature for renewable energy and so on, and not just oil and gas. So all these things would be, where we can work together in order to improve both our capacity for handling, let's say, refugees and other internally displaced people, and also to make sure we have food and energy resilience.
Thank you, Dr. O. While we're still waiting to go live to Wisma Putra for the officiation or the unveiling of the ASEAN Chairmanship logo and theme, we're in conversation with Dr. Jasmine Begum as well as Dr. O. Ehsan in the studio as we are waiting to, of course, review the logo, understand where we are heading, and waiting for the theme. But on that front, I know we spoke about challenges earlier. I want to come back to now about opportunities. So let's talk about opportunities. Dr. O, what do you think are the opportunities that lay ahead for ASEAN in 2025 with Malaysia as the chair?
Well, ASEAN, it's in a very lucky position. I mean, even the European friends in the European Union would envy us because some of the bigger economic powers in the European Union, Germany comes to mind, they will have almost zero growth this year and perhaps the next. Whereas in ASEAN, a typical ASEAN country, it would enjoy anywhere from 3 to 5% of growth, which nowadays is quite a lot. So again, going forward, I think we have to sort of shift our gear from what I would call quantitative growth to qualitative growth. It's not just you produce a lot of oil palm or palm oil or oil and gas and so on, then your economy is really going forward. It's how, as Dr. Begum said just now, how you could upskill your general populations to make sure that they are able to handle some of the newer technologies and thereby the added value that comes with those technologies to make sure that your growth, it's a qualitative one. It's imbued with high technology, it's powered by renewable energy and so on, and not just by fossil fuels and with producing only raw materials. Yeah.
There you go. And as you can see here from the studio, we witnessed the Foreign Minister has just arrived for the officiation ceremony that's going to be happening shortly. We'll be waiting for the unveiling of the ASEAN Chairmanship logo and theme. So this will be an exciting moment as as we wait for the unveiling of the logo and theme for the ASEAN Chairmanship. So Malaysia will be the chair for the year coming 2025. It's been 58 years that ASEAN has been formed. And while we're waiting for them to get to the stage, I think, Dr. Jasmine, if we could just tackle on the same thought of the opportunities that we can look ahead. And I think Dr. O has sort of like started with that whole digital sort of push. Perhaps your thoughts on the opportunities for us to look ahead too.
I think while technology has been, leading many areas, what opportunity I see is governments coming together in also looking at how the policies and regulations could also be digital ready. In many instances, the biggest challenge we see is analog policies trying to be phosphated into a digital world. Governments are today racing to also ensure that in order to drive competitive advantage to the member states, they are also ensuring that they are introducing digital policies are in fact digital first.
Sorry, do we have live feed right now? Okay, so we'll actually take you live to Wisma Putra right now. Sorry, Dr. Jasmine, for the interruption, where the Foreign Minister will officiate the unveiling, and we're actually witnessing the Yang di-Pertuan Agong entering the hall, and they're playing the Negaraku, and we'll go straight live to Wisma Putra right now.
Thank you. Please be seated. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, it is now my pleasure to invite YB Datuk Sri Utama Haji Muhammad bin Haji Hassan, Minister of Foreign Affairs, to deliver the keynote address.
Terus cakap, tak ada doa-doa ya. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Innallaha ma'al ladzina taqaw wal ladzina hum muhsinun. Alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. Wassalatu wassalamu Muhammadin asyrafil mursalin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajmain. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Terima kasih saudari pengacara majlis, sahabat-sahabat saya, Datuk Yang Berhormat Datuk Seri Zafrul, Menteri MITI, Yang Berhormat Datuk Seri Tiong, Menteri Motek, Ketua Yang Berhormat Timbalan Menteri MOFA Datuk Muhammad Alamin, Ketua Setiausaha Kementerian Luar Datuk Seri Amran, Ketua Setiausaha Kementerian Perdagangan dan Pelaburan, seterusnya ketua-ketua perwakilan asing, pegawai-pegawai kanan kerajaan, Tan Sri, Datuk-datuk, tuan-tuan dan puan-puan, para hadirin yang saya hormati sekalian. Syukur Alhamdulillah pada petang ini kita dapat bersama-sama dalam satu majlis yang ringkas tetapi majlis untuk Malaysia melancarkan kita punya logo dan juga tema sempena Malaysia menjadi tuan rumah pengerusi ASEAN 2025 nanti. Walaupun pada 11 hari bulan yang lalu Yang Amat Berhormat telah pun menerima mandat sebagai pengerusi ASEAN tahun 2025 di Vientiane dan logo pun telah pun ramai yang tahu, tetapi secara resminya hari ini Malaysia, negara kita melancarkan meresmikan logo dan juga tema untuk ASEAN 2025. Jadi, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, it is a significant occasion that brings us together on this day. Today brings us another step closer towards the beginning of an important new role for our country. The gears are already in motion for Malaysia's chairmanship of ASEAN next year. It is therefore with great joy that we launch the logo and theme of ASEAN Malaysia Chairmanship 2025 today. We have already seen the official handover of the chairmanship, which took place on 11 October at the conclusion of the 44th and 45th ASEAN Summit and related summit in Laos last week. The logo and theme for Malaysia's ASEAN Chairmanship were officially unveiled by Yang Amat Berhormat Perdana Menteri Malaysia, Datuk Seri Anwar Ibrahim. Before we go any further, I would like to take this opportunity to congratulate the government and the people of Laos for a successful and highly inspiring year in steering ASEAN forward. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, Malaysia is deeply honored and stands ready to assume this pivotal responsibility. Allow me to share with you a snapshot of our main priorities next year. Firstly, we will aim to fortify ASEAN centrality. That's the core of ASEAN, that is ASEAN centrality. Malaysia will promote strategic trust among nations through sustained dialogues, diplomacy and goodwill. Working together with member states, Malaysia seeks to expand our economic partnerships with those beyond our borders. The convening of ASEAN GCC plus China Summit in Kuala Lumpur in 2025 is indeed a testament of ASEAN's intent of collaborating with a wider global community. Secondly, Malaysia will continue to push for greater commitment in enhanced ASEAN intra-trade and investment. We will also ensure that ASEAN will be able to leverage on advances in sciences, technology and innovation and harness the benefits of digital transformation and new technologies. Thirdly, Malaysia will ensure that the elements of inclusivity and sustainability, which is the theme for 2025, take center stage in our regional community building efforts. This will entail greater efforts to narrowing the development gap, improving living standards while mitigating the impacts of climate change. Having been premised on Malaysia's Madani framework, inclusivity and sustainability are interdependent and mutually reinforcing values. Malaysia will ensure that these values are advanced and embedded across all spectrums of ASEAN cooperation during our chairmanship. We believe that the pursuit of these aspirations is essential to the region's growth and resilience. Excellencies, in 2025, ASEAN will be commemorating the 10th anniversary of the formal establishment of the ASEAN community. Building from this achievement, we have plans to adopt ASEAN Community Vision 2045, a framework that will chart our strategic direction for the next 20 years. I have always believed that as a community, we have not only withstood but prevailed over many of our shared obstacles together. Through the decades, we have achieved this the ASEAN way. ASEAN's nuanced and pragmatic approach to managing geopolitical competition between major powers is increasingly seen as a model for the rest of the developing world. ASEAN's commitment to neutrality, dialogue and regional cooperation have kept Southeast Asia stable amid external rivalries. For instance, ladies and gentlemen, ASEAN's trade with China recorded $696.7 billion in 2023, reflecting China's position as our largest trading partner since 2009. At the same time, trade with the United States amounted to $395.9 billion. Such a diplomatic balance has also led to strong growth in foreign direct investment for ASEAN. Last year, we successfully attracted a total of $229.8 billion in FDI, with China and United States ranking as major contributors. This influx of investments has been pivotal in driving job creation, technology transfer, and infrastructure development across the region. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, once again, I wish to reiterate that Malaysia is fully committed to our role and responsibility as the next ASEAN Chair. We count on the support and the cooperation from all of our friends and partners in ensuring a successful year ahead. Our vision of ASEAN will remain immutable. It will continue to reflect the hopes of our peoples for a peaceful, stable, and prosperous region that is ready to contribute positively to global affairs. With that, I thank everybody. I thank all of you for attending this function. Sorry to ask you to come all the way from Kuala Lumpur, but this is the only space that we're available and cheaper. We save costs now. So, in the process that we have to come all over from Kuala Lumpur, thank you very much again, once again, and I look forward to your support, especially our foreign friend and ASEAN especially. Sorry not to address our Dean, Vanu, as a Dean of ASEAN Diplomatic Corps in Kuala Lumpur, and also a Dean for Diplomatic Corps in Malaysia. And I can count on your support, my friend. Yeah? So look forward to see you all again. Thank you very much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you, Datuk Sri, for the keynote address. YB, could you please remain on the stage as we usher you towards the launching pad for the launching ceremony. May I invite YB Minister of Investment, Trade and Industry, and YB Minister Tourism and Culture to the stage to join YB Minister of Foreign Affairs for launching. And now, ladies and gentlemen, we will proceed to the highlight of today's ceremony, the launching of the logo and theme of the ASEAN-Malaysia Chairmanship 2025. May I invite all the ministers to place their hands on the pad as we begin the countdown. Together. 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Ladies and gentlemen, the unveiling of the logo and theme for the ASEAN-Malaysia Chairmanship 2025. Let's give a big round of applause. I now invite you to return to your seat as we proceed with the screening of the video montage of Malaysia's Chairmanship logo and theme. Ladies and gentlemen, allow me to draw your attention to the screen.
The logo is inspired by Hibiscus rosa sinensis, Bunga Raya, which is the national flower of Malaysia and also commonly found in all ASEAN member states. The flower symbolizes cultural richness, unity, and identity of the region. The colors used in the logo, blue, red, yellow, and white, represent the main colors of the flags of all ASEAN member states. The tip pointing to the right symbolizes Malaysia as chair, driving ASEAN forward. The sixth stigma signifies the Madani principles: sustainability, care and compassion, respect, innovation, prosperity and trust, which underpin Malaysia's chairmanship. The inward curve of the 5 petals embracing the ASEAN logo reflects inclusivity, reinforcing Malaysia's vision for a peaceful, stable, and prosperous ASEAN. Bunga Raya signifies the rich biodiversity of the region, representing ASEAN's drive towards sustainability. The circular motion of the petals around the ASEAN logo symbolizes ASEAN's collective resolve towards attaining the long-term sustainability of the region and its people. The ASEAN logo in the middle represents ASEAN centrality.
Malaysia, a nation of promise and progress, proudly steps into the ASEAN Chairmanship in 2025. A decade ago, we held the chair as the ASEAN community was born in Kuala Lumpur. And now, Malaysia is once again ready to drive progress and empower the people of Southeast Asia. ASEAN is now more than an association of nations. It is a symphony of shared dreams, a chorus of hopes intertwined. It breathes with the rhythm of unity, with a vision that lights the path to a brighter tomorrow. Together we have forged a path towards peace, stability, and prosperity. Through the trials and triumphs, ASEAN has grown even stronger. Today, we stand as an economic powerhouse, poised to become the world's 4th largest economy. Our resilience is unshakable, our resolve unwavering. In 2025, we will forge ahead, bold, confident, and unyielding. This is ASEAN's moment to shine. As chair, Malaysia will embrace the future with a clear vision. We will champion inclusivity, creating a region where every voice soars and no one is left behind. We will drive sustainability in all we do, securing the long-term well-being of our people. Together, we will build a future where everyone can thrive.
ASEAN is a community of nations, of shared dreams, an excellent example of how neighbors can sit down and work together for the betterment of our people.
In 2025, under the guiding light of the ASEAN Community Vision 2045, a new chapter will begin. This marks the start of a 20-year journey, a journey where we rise not as separate nations, but as one. One community, bound by progress, peace, and purpose. One vision, driven by the promise of a greater future for generations to come. Together, we will shape a future of shared peace, stability, and prosperity where our unity drives us forward and our legacy endures. Welcome to where it all begins anew.
Selamat datang, welcome to Malaysia.
Thank you, and we look forward to welcoming all leaders and delegates to Malaysia next year with open arms. To commemorate this moment, we will now invite YB Ministers of Foreign Affairs, YB Minister of Investment, Trade and Industry, and YB Minister Tourism, Arts and Culture, and the ASEAN Ambassadors, together with the Timor-Leste Ambassador, to join the ministers on stage for a group family photo.
And there it is, the ASEAN Chairmanship logo for 2025 has been unveiled. And I'm sure we'll have some comments with regards to the design, what it symbolizes, the theme of forging ahead. And stay tuned, we'll be returning to the event shortly for the Foreign Minister's press conference. But before we go there, we would like to, of course, sort of unpack that. Dr. Jasmine, I know you're wearing the hibiscus here. You were saying, your comments when you were looking at the theme. What do you think of the logo and theme that has been just unveiled?
Just looking at the theme of inclusive and sustainability, we are at a point where this is central to our discussion. And the Minister talked about ASEAN centrality. It's not only our role or ASEAN bringing together this stability or the voice of moderation, but the centrality is going to be a critical one. And just looking at the inclusive and sustainability as a theme, and what pride it gives me as a Malaysian to see the hibiscus up there. Indeed, I think that the thought process of the entire design centers not only on the centrality of it, but also being inclusive. I think that is an important theme. Being inclusive by design is very important for the region, for us as the Global South, for us to spearhead many of the critical topics that we are talking about. And on the sustainability, I think we started off talking about food security, we talked about climate change, and we have such a rich, environment, not only Malaysia, but the entire region. We have rich resources. And it is critical that we talk about sustainability in a way that is not an afterthought. And the fact that it has taken on a central theme as Malaysia assumes the chairmanship, I think it is going to be an important conversation not only for this year, but it is going to be one that will have Malaysia having a huge legacy as well.
No, it's amazing. I think we were commenting how inclusive it looked, with all the design aspects of it, inclusivity as well as sustainability. And they had described the logo having cultural richness, signifying unity, signifying the identity of the peoples that it represents. Dr. O, perhaps your thoughts. How does the theme align with ASEAN's goals for the next decade?
Number one, if we look at the logo, first look at it, you almost have the impression that it's some sort of a tornado, right? Then when you look closer, well, indeed, it's a variation of a hibiscus. And therefore, I would say it's a very dynamic hibiscus. It's not a static hibiscus, right? It looks like the hibiscus is twirling and so on.
It's a little bit like a fan or a turbine, right?
It's like a turbine-like kind of hibiscus, and then there's a direction going forward and so on. So I think that signifies ASEAN very well. ASEAN is not a very static region. We are peaceful, but we are also prosperous. People in ASEAN, we work very hard in order to make this, as was said just now, soon to be the fourth largest economy as a whole in the world. That is no easy accomplishment. I mean, we are just some Southeast Asian countries. We are not US, we are not Europe, we are not China. On the other hand, when you look at all these, the three main themes, namely centrality, inclusivity, and sustainability, I think these are going to be the main themes for ASEAN, not only for the coming year, but I think for the next 20 years, perhaps until 2045.
Which is what they talked about for the ASEAN Community Vision 2045.
Right.
I just also want to remind the viewers that we will be going back to the press conference once the Foreign Minister and all the ambassadors are ready. So stay tuned. We will go back to Wisma Putra shortly. But we were discussing, obviously, the logo and theme that has just been unveiled as Malaysia as a chair for ASEAN 2025. I know you touched about the 20-year journey that you're looking ahead to, and they have already had that vision 2045 of driving ahead. So you were mentioning that.
Well, I think in terms of centrality, nowadays practically it would mean we situate ourselves very carefully between the US and China, right? And indeed, the foreign ministers, he being a foreign minister, the top diplomat of the country, he mentioned China being a very important trading partner, but the US also being a very important investors, right?
Yep.
So sort of trying to balance both. In terms of, I think, inclusivity, I think he specifically mentioned using all this or harnessing all this high technology in order to value add to whatever we are producing. And I think going forward, when we talk about inclusivity, you have a lot of these high-tech elements in it. And of course, all this have to be driven by sustainable energy, sustainable power, and in general, sustainability. Yeah.
Now, in case you, thank you so much, Dr. O. Now, in case you missed the logo launch, we'll be playing the logo launch again so that people get a second look and then you get to appreciate the design and obviously the theme of inclusivity as well as sustainability. Let's take a look.
The logo is inspired by Hibiscus rosa sinensis, Bunga Raya, which is the national flower of Malaysia and also commonly found in all ASEAN member states. The flower symbolizes cultural richness, unity, and identity of the region. The colors used in the logo, blue, red, yellow, and white, represent the main colors of the flags of all ASEAN member states. The tip pointing to the right symbolizes Malaysia as chair, driving ASEAN forward. The sixth stigma signifies the Madani principles: sustainability, care and compassion, respect, innovation, prosperity and trust, which underpin Malaysia's chairmanship. The inward curve of the 5 petals embracing the ASEAN logo reflects inclusivity, reinforcing Malaysia's vision for a peaceful, stable, and prosperous ASEAN. Bunga Raya signifies the rich biodiversity of the region, representing ASEAN's drive towards sustainability. The circular motion of the petals around the ASEAN logo symbolizes ASEAN's collective resolve towards attaining the long-term sustainability of the region and its people. The ASEAN logo in the middle represents ASEAN centrality.
And there we have the logo and the theme again. What a beautiful logo it is, I must say. Surprisingly, I think a lot of people expect sort of like a little bit more conservative, but this was very forward-thinking, very dynamic, as Dr. O was mentioning earlier, signifying our drive towards the progress that we're seeking for the ASEAN nation. Now, as we prepare to return to Wisma Putra later, as we have the press conference that's much awaited, I want to ask this question of how can Malaysia leverage this theme for diplomatic success? Perhaps we'll start with you, Dr. Jasmine.
Thank you. I want to build on what Dr. O said about it being a progressive one. And I do want to go to that petal, not the petal, but the stigma, where he talked about the 6 principles.
The 6 Madani principles. Yeah.
The 6 Madani principles are universal values.
Yeah.
And the fact that Malaysia is spearheading this and speaking a common language that's inclusive and drives sustainability, I think that in itself shows a global stance, a global diplomatic approach in advocating for inclusive policy, but one that is universal and resonates with everyone, right? While it may be seen, why are we talking about Madani framework in a multilateral? But these are principles that are universal in value. And I think that in itself shows the maturity of the nation as how we approach our global diplomatic stance. And I think as a nation as our top diplomat has called out both the role of US and the role of China, I think we too have a role to play. We, as a member state, as ASEAN, as we take on this chairmanship, we are not only spearheading or driving key values that are global in nature, but also an opportunity for us to drive our voice. We play an important voice and using our voice of advocacy beyond ASEAN for also Global South, and ensuring that there is equitable representation, economic representation across the region and across the Global South. So to me, I think the Madani framework there actually plays an important role in our global diplomatic voice and advocacy work that we will be spearheading through ASEAN.
Now, I'll just remind the theme, the inclusivity as well as sustainability was the theme for ASEAN 2025. And Datuk Sri Muhammad Hassan touched during his speech, a powerful speech that was, of inclusivity in his process as well. He talked about that centrality that we mentioned earlier, trying to expand the connection as well as encouraging collaboration. So collaboration was a very key point that he highlighted throughout, and which touched about some of the topics that we talked about earlier, intra-trade as well as investment and pushing for investment in science, technology, innovation, data transfer, new technology. We're looking at, expanding in that digital world, and of course the inclusivity as well as sustainability also talks about climate change, about improving lives of the general 670 million population, our individual citizens of ASEAN. And if I may, Dr. Oh, I wanted to touch about the Madani principles as well that you mentioned earlier. Maybe we could dissect. We talk about sustainability, care and compassion, respect, innovation, prosperity, and trust. What are your thoughts on the direction of the theme this time around?
Well, again, as was said, these were universal values, right? So then the task would lie in how to translate this into more concrete actions, right? ASEAN should earn its respect among the major role players of the world, and I think we can start by trying harder in order to help resolve the crisis in Myanmar, which is one of our member states, and then we can perhaps play more proactive roles in trying to I wouldn't say playing a mediating role, but perhaps be more vocal in terms of some other world affairs. In terms of sustainability, of course, Southeast Asia, full of rainforests, tropical rainforests and so on. So we are very qualified in terms of talking about how to reduce climate change, how to have more effective carbon capture and storage and so on. And this would have, of course, major implications in terms of lessening some of the natural disasters around the world. In terms of being prosperous and so on, of course, we are doing that every single day. We are a very large economic bloc. But I think we should also perhaps pay some attention in terms of ASEAN's reform in itself to make ASEAN into a more robust regional organizations. For example, right now in ASEAN, we make decisions by consensus. Everybody, the 10 and soon to be 11 members around the table, have to all agree on certain decision before we could adapt that. Well, perhaps it's time to think of something, or what I would call super majority. Let's say 2/3 or 3/4 of ASEAN members agree on certain decision. We could adopt that decision. If the rest are not agreeing with that, then perhaps they don't apply those decisions yet. But those of us, the 3/4 who agree, perhaps you could apply that particular decision yet to make ASEAN's decisions more timely, more powerful, and hopefully more effective. I think this sort of ASEAN reform is also important.
Dr. Jasmine, your thoughts on this? Because I think this is a very interesting proposition by Dr. Oh.
I think as Asian ASEAN and members of the Southeast Asia community, we tend to be very respectful in our approach. Inclusive, of course, our leadership approach has always been consultative. Consultative and inclusive leadership approach. And I do think that in order for us to get to that kind of supermajority, it goes back to the constitution and what the founding fathers of ASEAN wanted to achieve. Things have changed for sure, And I do think as a multilateral, as a bloc, we have a resounding voice. I was recently told when I think I was in Laos, during the handover, and more recently in the Secretariat, increasing number of ambassadors that are placed at the ASEAN Secretariat has gone up twofold. And I do think with that resounding voice, we see ASEAN ambassadors from France, from US, from EU that are now having a seat at the ASEAN Secretariat, so which we had not seen in the past. With this increasing number of ASEAN ambassadors being placed within ASEAN from non-ASEAN member states, it feels almost like Brussels and DC, where the most powerful and the best of ambassadors are placed in Brussels and DC. We are now seeing that pattern in ASEAN. To me, that demonstrates the role ASEAN plays. I think while I see this opportunity for us to have a more not only a progressive voice but more of a decisive voice, I think it will take time. But I also think we have opened up this opportunity beyond ASEAN with the friends of ASEAN, and they see our role, and I think that is not going to diminish anytime soon. We'll continue to be a strong voice, especially with the Global North.
It will take a little bit of time, as Dr. Jasmine said, but I think those are thoughts that can be put forth and be considered. We are still waiting to go back to Wisma Putra for the Foreign Minister's press conference. As you can see here, everybody is waiting, and you can see the cameramans are all on standby as well. They're preparing for the press conference with the speech as well as the stage to be taken by the Foreign Minister and the dignitaries at the moment. And back at the studio, I wanted to address this sort of like conversation as well. I think some of the challenges that we did not get the time to speak about earlier, perhaps if I could ask Dr. O to highlight some of the, there's quite a gap with regards to the member states that are within the 10-member ASEAN group. So, income per capita, you can see the huge disparity between Singapore as well as some of the newer member states that have come in later, and as well as later on, if we do have Timor-Leste joining us, it will be quite a disparity. And finding that common voice would be something of a challenge with different nations at different levels. Perhaps your thoughts on that?
Well, those of us which are the founders or founder nations of ASEAN, the 5 founder nations of ASEAN as well. We have to take the lead, in order to help and to assist some of the latecomers to ASEAN, such as Laos, such as Cambodia, and Myanmar,
Vietnam,
right?
Yeah.
Now Vietnam has sort of graduated itself.
Yes,
it used to be
forging ahead already.
Yes, forged ahead and now becomes one of the major players in ASEAN. So and that is a very shining example. You are a latecomer, but if you work hard, you could indeed forge ahead. But all of us indeed have that responsibility in order to assist our sisters and brothers in the more late-coming ASEAN nations, economically, of course, because they are still economically, shall we say, a bit more challenging, but also in terms of social development, in terms of training and education opportunities, scholarships, and so on, for students coming from those nations and so on, so that they could indeed help upskill themselves, as you mentioned just now.
Dr. Jasmine, your thoughts on this, closing that gap?
Before we crossed over, I talked about analog policies. Technology and digital has become an important level playing field. With progressive technologies, we are seeing nations leapfrogging, and governments are using technologies like artificial intelligence to leapfrog economies, and we see opportunity especially in where we see governments are just adapting and just moving forward. So one area where I see opportunity is where analog policies today, which seem to be inhibit this progress, where governments are working together and the cross-border data flow is one such good example where governments are now considering trusted data corridors to be able to set up this safe transfer of technology, safe transfer of data. And that, I think, is something that as a group, as a bloc, as a multilateral, we want to see how could we harmonize, how could we ensure that these policies, we move away from analog policies, digital policies by design, security by design are used to ensure that all of the nations, member states are able to be uplifted. And that is an opportunity that I see that Malaysia could spearhead.
No, and when speaking of that, it puts front and center cybersecurity concerns and the need for infrastructure that's cross-border as well.
Yeah.
It's if you have a secure border here, once you cross border, is the data secure? Does it have all the infrastructure to maintain whatever kind of privacy that we're expecting that we have in our own individual sort of boundaries and borders? And what are your thoughts with regards to how do we tackle that challenge really?
I think privacy laws, our digital minister and ministers across the region are looking at updating privacy laws, harmonizing these privacy laws, ensuring that we have safe and the highest standards of privacy laws across the region so that data could be transferred safely. And the crux of digital economy is data, right? And this free flow of data. I think more than ever, governments are rethinking how privacy laws are looked at. Of course, we have seen GDPR being that gold standard, but we are not lagging behind. We are progressing quite quickly, and whether it's in cybersecurity, whether it in responsible AI, whether it is in privacy laws, there is a discussion. The digital working group within ASEAN continued to drive this conversation quite urgently, and that to me shows not only urgency but also the need for us to have one voice and the centrality of it.
It's rapidly moving. Just to remind viewers, we will be going back to Wisma Putra anytime soon for the Foreign Minister's press conference. As you can see, we're on standby for the Foreign Minister and the ambassadors to take their place. And we'll obviously be looking forward to questions from the media for what will be potentially happening for ASEAN 2025. While we're waiting for that, I want to touch back in the studio about food security, because I know we talked about food security a lot, and that's probably one of the largest concern that is going to be able to provide a little bit more stability or large stability to a large majority of the ASEAN member states. Dr. Oh, perhaps your thoughts on this. How do we forge ahead with this?
We used to look at food security in terms of whether a single country, Malaysia or Thailand, will be able to provide for its own people, right? Well, since we have ASEAN and we are so harmonious and peaceful with one another,
can we feed ourselves?
That's right. Could we look at it at a larger picture of whether we could feed ASEAN as a whole? Some ASEAN countries are more, shall we say, capable than others in terms of their agriculture, in terms of producing a lot of foodstuff. So I think then our job is to make sure that the cross-boundary transfer, import and exports of these foodstuffs would not be met with a lot of tariffs or even non-tariff barriers, right? Supposedly, we should have free flow of all these foodstuff, because of AEC, right? We are supposed to be like EEC last time, but still, how we actually translate our individual obligations, national obligations under the AEC into our domestic legislation, I think that still needs to be work about.
What's the stumbling block?
I think food security continues to be a national agenda. It has to be a regional agenda, right? And while we want to ensure that we have enough for the nation, but collectively, as you pointed out, the number of countries that produce rice within the region is pretty impressive.
Yeah.
Almost 7 out of 10 countries or 8 out of 10 countries produce rice, right? We could be the rice bowl. Thailand used to be the rice bowl of the world, but ASEAN could be the rice bowl for the world. But charity begins at home. We want to feed our people first.
Yes.
I was reading yesterday how Lao is looking to create this durian farming, and I was
Nice.
laughing. I thought, and to me that is complementing the demand for
yeah.
it's not a food security issue for
Yeah,
sure,
yeah.
but the fact
But it's
is,
economic
it is-
stability,
yeah.
economic security that we're looking at.
and opportunities, right?
Yes.
But what is it? What kind of technology can we exchange? How can we ensure that we are a prosperous community, that we are leaning on each other, contributing to each other to ensure that we rise as a region? But those are opportunities that we are not discussing enough.
Yeah.
And yes, national food security will be central to many governments, given the lesson we have just learned from the recent pandemic. But how do we talk about food security more as food resilience, beyond security, but also food resilience, and making sure that it becomes a regional agenda, a global South agenda that I think we have an opportunity to lead, and in fact look at even use of technology and high tech to ensure that we create the sustainability within our food resilience supply chain.
I think we need to change our lenses, and we need to change our conversations. Instead of you and me, it's us. Then we can actually see that path forward. We'll be coming back to Wisma Putra for the Foreign Minister's press conference shortly, but we'll take a short breather right now. We'll be right back after these messages. Stay tuned.
The logo is inspired by Hibiscus rosa sinensis, Bunga Raya, which is the national flower of Malaysia and also commonly found in all ASEAN member states. The flower symbolizes cultural richness, unity, and identity of the region. The colors used in the logo, blue, red, yellow, and white, represent the main colors of the flags of all ASEAN member states. The tip pointing to the right symbolizes Malaysia as chair, driving ASEAN forward. The sixth stigma signifies the Madani principles: sustainability, care and compassion, respect, innovation, prosperity, and trust, which underpin Malaysia.
Hello, and welcome back to the studio. And I do believe that the PC is now ready for the Foreign Minister's press conference. So now let's head over to Wisma Putra for the much anticipated media launch. I close up. Of the logo and the theme earlier again, just to remind everyone, the ASEAN 2025 launched the latest logo as well as theme of inclusivity as well as sustainability. And we take you back to Wisma Putra for the Foreign Minister's press conference, and let's take a look.
He's coming. Kalau tak petang, tak apalah. Apa nak tanya? Tak tahu apa nak cakap dah. Cuba tengok dia, he's coming. Cuba tengok. Tiba tengok Tengku Zafrul. Dia datang, tak ada, tak apa. Okey. Ready ya? Alhamdulillah, pada petang ini telah berlangsung suatu majlis yang ringkas tetapi bermakna, iaitu majlis pelancaran logo dan juga tema untuk Malaysia menjadi pengerusi ASEAN pada tahun 2025 nanti. Ya, walaupun logo itu telah pun diketahui ramai semasa Yang Amat Berhormat Perdana Menteri kita menerima mandat semasa di Vientiane, Laos. Kita punya ada montaj, ada logo dan juga kita punya tema. Tetapi secara resminya hari ini kita melancarkan logo dan tema kita. logo kita seperti kita tahu, bunga raya yang mempunyai signifikan yang besar kepada rantau Asia Tenggara. Ia merupakan bunga yang banyak ada di setiap negeri-negeri di Asia Tenggara, ya. Dan ini merupakan dengan kita punya tema iaitu inclusivity, to be inclusive, sama-sama. Color pun semua color bendera, warna bendera negara-negara ASEAN semua ada 4 color tersebut. Ini merupakan apa orang kata message yang very subtle yang kita nak tunjukkan kepada masyarakat di rantau Asia Tenggara betapa keperluan untuk kita terus bersama. Jangan ada terpikat dengan usaha-usaha nak macah belahkan kita. The ASEAN solidarity is something that's very strong. A lot of people envious of us. A lot of efforts to see whether or not we can break us or not. Jadi itu perkara yang perlu kita pertahankan. Malaysia yang akan mempengerusikan ASEAN pada tahun depan, ini tugas utama kita. Untuk kita pastikan supaya kesatuan ASEAN ini yang telah ditubuhkan 67 tahun dulu berasaskan kepada zon bebas, aman dan berkecuali ini dapat terus kita kekalkan. Dan dalam masa yang sama kita nak supaya kemampanan kita juga akan melancarkan 10 tahun dulu kita menjadi tuan rumah iaitu ASEAN Community, iaitu masyarakat ASEAN 2015-2025. Tetapi pada kali ini kita akan melancarkan juga ASEAN Community ataupun masyarakat ASEAN bukan 10 tahun lagi tetapi menjadi 20 tahun. ASEAN Community 2025-2045, ya 20 tahun. Kerana memanjangkan 20 tahun itu kita perlukan untuk kita buat rangka kerja yang bersepadu, yang berasaskan kepada kesatuan ASEAN, negara-negara ASEAN, dan bagaimana untuk kita melonjakkan lagi kita punya kemampanan dari segi ekonomi.
Summit baru-baru ini di Laos, kita telah pun mempunyai sepemikiran, kita telah pun sependapat untuk kita meneruskan dan meneraju ASEAN ke tahap yang lebih tinggi. InsyaAllah. Terima kasih. Yes.
My question is tensions in Middle East and also some other areas of world is in escalating. So under this background, Malaysia served as the 2025 chair of the ASEAN meeting. In the Laos ASEAN summit, the UN Secretary General Guterres he said that ASEAN can be an example of the world. The whole world can learn many things from ASEAN, especially in keeping the peace of the world. So under this very complex world situation, so what do you think Malaysia's role in the keeping the peace of the world?
Keeping peace of the world is something huge, very big task, and I don't imagine that how Malaysia can play our part. But as an ASEAN, it's a block of ASEAN, a block that is, I think, that is a lot of people envious of our success, and we're going to be the fourth largest GDP economy in 2030. We can voice out ASEAN's view on how best that we can learn how to sit and live together. How can best that we live side by side, because the world is big enough for everybody, that we have enough space for everyone. That will be our priority in ASEAN, to maintain the peace and stability in this region. That is why we are taking every effort that possible to maintain this. That's why we are also discussing during our summit how best that we keep this centrality together and to keep the peace together for this region. And any slight crisis is not good for us, but it will be disaster for everybody in this region. So a big task, to maintain this, but I don't think that is something that is impossible for us to achieve, because all this while ASEAN been together for the 67 years, and moving forward, I think ASEAN a lot of things to offer to people in terms of how best the model of ASEAN centrality can be a template for everyone in this world. Thank you.
Adakah kita akan melihat satu lembaran atau sejarah baru dengan anggota penuh dari Timor Leste dalam masa ini?
Timor Leste telah pun menjadi sebagai negara pemerhati sudah beberapa tahun. Usaha untuk menjadikan Timor Leste ini sebagai ahli penuh ASEAN memang sedang dilakukan dan sedang dipercepatkan. Di dalam kita punya summit ataupun AMM summit tempoh hari, salah satu daripada agenda kita ialah untuk kita melihat on best effort basis, ya, Timor Leste will be accepted and acceded to the ASEAN membership. Itu yang kita buat, dan banyaklah dia punya documentation yang perlu dilakukan, treaty like TAC, Treaty of Amity dan Cooperation mesti dibuat, tetapi kebanyakannya dokumen-dokumen tersebut ialah berasaskan ekonomi. Dan kita telah minta tonggak ekonomi untuk melihat dan mengkaji jika boleh kita memendekkan dia punya senarai keperluannya tersebut, kerana bagi saya lah, ya, ada juga ahli ASEAN yang sedia ada ini belum lagi mencapai sepenuhnya syarat-syarat tersebut. Why not we give that leeway to Timor Leste untuk beliau menjadi ataupun mereka menjadi ahli penuh dulu. Itu untuk kebaikan ASEAN, ya. Dan bila kita ada Timor Leste, ia akan memperkasakan lagi ASEAN sebagai satu blok negara di rantau Asia Tenggara. Kita, sebab saya kata tadi, on best effort basis kita akan cuba, ya, kerana ASEAN apa saja, whatever decision by ASEAN country or members, it have to be on consensus basis, ya, bukan seorang, it is not a chairman's call, but it's on based on consensus, and consensus ni penting, ya, ya, itu syarat dia, ya, ya. Belum dibawa ke depan lagi, belum kita meletakkan sebagai agenda lagi, ya. Ini baru kita berjalan di peringkat kerja, operational base. But this SOM level, senior officers meeting, memberikan feedback, mengatakan bahawa ini dia yang perlu dilakukan oleh Timor Leste. That is why kita di kalangan pemimpin, kita telah pun memberi pandangan agar, seperti saya kata tadi, kluster ekonomi ini banyak, 86 dokumen, 60 lebih ekonomi saja, kluster ekonomi. Why not kluster ekonomi punya pemimpin, punya operational level, SOM dia melihat supaya kita kompreskan ataupun kita kurangkan sedikit, dan selepas besok kita bagilah dalam masa kata in 5 years time you have to comply with everything, ataupun dalam masa 10 tahun, 5 tahun kita bawa dia dulu. But ini belum lagi kita letakkan sebagai agenda dalam mesyuarat ASEAN. Jadi soalan ada konsensus tidak, itu belum timbul lagi lah, ya. Yes, you from where?
Today is also the opening day of the BRIC meetings in Russia. I think Malaysia Prime Minister Anwar also attended this meeting. So what do you think about this meeting?
Prime Minister Anwar is having good time, having coffee in his office now.
It's not BRIC meeting. BRIC meeting. He didn't attend this.
Prime Minister, you can drop by his office. He's in the office today.
Okay.
Why get all this nonsense?
I just hope to know that what do you think of these BRIC meetings opened in Russia, and it is said that BRIC countries' payment system possibly will be raised up in this meeting and have
what
some
I think
impact.
it's not important because we are not a member. Okay? Once I become a member, then I'll tell you what I think.
Okay. Thank you.
Just want to, ASEAN has made great progress in terms of economic cooperation, and that seemed to be a large part of the focus.
Yeah.
But for many years now, I think we've been hampered by inability to handle the crisis in Myanmar? I mean, we've got the 5-point plan, but as we've seen, progress has been, the fighting is still going on and the conflict is worsening. So under Malaysia's chairmanship, what does Malaysia hope to achieve in terms of trying to resolve this crisis? What are your plans as well?
Why you ask difficult question? No, what we have in mind is that not to settle or just the crisis will be over, but for beginning that we should put we have to talk to every faction, not only one faction. It's involved a lot of factions in Myanmar. Yeah. We have to talk to the SAC, we have to talk to all this so-called the democratic faction, the Arakan faction. This one is not easy. But we will open up the channel. We don't want to close the door. We're going to open up the channel. We're going to talk to them. What is actually happening? We know what is actually happening there. So we try to mediate and to navigate where Myanmar should be. But most importantly, that is the hostilities toward their own people should be stopped. If that we can achieve, that is very, very, very big achievement for us already. So stop the killing, because stop all this, the exodus of their own people towards a neighboring country. It's no more what ASEAN say, okay, we are not interfering in internal affairs of a country, but it's no more, it's their internal affairs. It's already affected us. This is intra-border, cross-border activities has already happened, So we will talk to them. But the 5-point consensus is the core of is the base of our negotiation. We should not compromise on that. And we have Troika. The Troika is the past, the present, and the future chairman. So this time around, Malaysia is the chairman. Next year, it will be Laos, Malaysia, and the Philippines. So 3 of us, we sit down together, and the mandate given by the leaders of ASEAN through Troika, based on 5-point consensus, should be the basis and the platform of whatever negotiation, whatever discussion that we're going to have with the Myanmar factions in the future. Yeah. Yes.
On the same point, Prime Minister has mentioned the possibility of a carve-out before. At what point do we kind of activate this? You say that we will continue to talk to them, but if they refuse to do anything, at some point you have to, take a firmer stance.
There's
right?
no issue of carving out of any members of ASEAN. Full stop. I think that is wrong. There is no talk, no intention at all to carve out anybody from the ASEAN. Okay, but now that we receive a lot of signals from various factions in Myanmar, they're willing to talk, they're willing to discuss. So we will take this advantage to talk and then to discuss with them what actually they want. But for us, we don't want to pressure anybody, because we want to listen to what they have in mind first. Then we will sit down again, we bring back the issue, then we sit down among ASEAN, then we will discuss what is the best approach that we can handle the situation in Myanmar. Okay? So no issue of carving out, yeah? Carve out. Yes.
Sorry, just to clarify, is because the military leaders have been banned from attending ASEAN summits, right, since 2021. So I just wonder about the level of engagement that ASEAN has with the military, with the leaders. Are you also talking to them about this issue? And
we try our best. We have signals, also good signal, very good signal. This is not incoming train, but it's the end of the tunnel. The signal is good, yeah. So that we're going to open up discussion with them, be it with the military, the junta, or with other factions. And I'm going to try to have discussion with my counterpart after my return from CHOGM meeting. Yeah, and then I will call him. Then from there we will come up with a place where I can sit down with my colleague in ASEAN to present it to them how best that we can approach situation or handle the situation in Myanmar. So, okay, enough of Myanmar. Okay? This today is ASEAN. Yes, ada apa? Ada apa-apa lagi? Ada apa-apa? Ya. Kau ni Myanmar, Timor Leste. Apa itu? Itu kita dah mulakan sejak kita di Laos. Lagi kita minta supaya itu, sebab saya sebutkan tadi, kalau boleh kluster ekonomi yang banyaknya dia dokumen tu daripada kluster ekonomi supaya mereka kompreskan, ya, dan mengurangkan, dan boleh jadi kita letakkan syarat selepas menjadi member nanti kita bagi dia 5 tahun ataupun 10 tahun untuk dia comply with all the documentation ataupun treaty yang patut mereka tanda tangani, ya. Kalau tidak nanti sampai bila-bila tak boleh, ya. Very difficult. Yeah. It's not easy to be ASEAN members. Ada apa lagi? Yeah.
Malaysia and China held the first bilateral meeting on South China Sea. Will there be any more meetings? And can you tell us what happened at the meeting last week in Langkawi?
Meetings continue. We still have a lot of meetings because we are the country coordinator for China for the next 3 years. Yeah, bilateral is Malaysia. Yeah, we have bilateral. Bilateral is a lot more on trades and investment, not so much on China Sea. South China Sea, we have a platform, what we call is COC, Code of Conduct. So we want to finalize that, and we have this joint working group at official level and also this SOM level in Xi'an last month in September, and it's progressing well. We hope that we can present this case to every members of ASEAN and get what they call a collective opinion. What do we think with the COC? So that because the little state of ASEAN, we set common passageway, and we are a maritime state, so do Philippines, Indonesia, anything, then we have to put our head together. Yeah. But rest assured that we want to see that South China Sea is an open sea. It's in accordance with the international law and in accordance with the United Nations Convention of the Law of the Sea, 1982. Okay? The basis is based on that. Whatever negotiation, whatever discussion, it has to be based on that. We cannot run away from that. See? Alright. Okay? Dah? Cukup ya? Alright. Jom kita makan. Whatever. Sama-sama.
Yes. Stand by. Oops. And there was the press conference. It was a very interesting press conference, I must say. But we don't have that much time for us to be able to dissect that press conference. Hopefully, we'll be able to have more opportunities. Thank you so much, Dr. Jasmine Begum, Dr. Oyesan, for being with us in the studio, sharing your insights. It was very insightful. And as we come to the end of this special coverage, we'll obviously witness the unveiling of Malaysia's ASEAN Chairmanship logo and theme. Just a reminder, it was inclusivity and sustainability, marking the beginning of an exciting journey for ASEAN under Malaysia's leadership. As I mentioned earlier, thank you both for joining us, and we look forward to Malaysia's lead in shaping the region's future. I'm Elaine Rabla. Bye for now.